The gunshot echoed across the canyon just as Nala Begay realized she had nothing left to eat but the dried venison in her pack. And now this wounded stranger was bleeding out at the base of the cottonwood tree where she had planned to rest for the night. She moved quickly down the rocky slope, her moccasins finding purchase where boots would have slipped. The man wore cowboy clothes, dusty and torn, and blood seeped through his shirt near his shoulder. His hat had fallen beside him, revealing sun-bleached hair matted with sweat. He was young, maybe 25, his face weathered but not hardened by age. His eyes opened as she approached, blue as a winter sky, and she saw fear flash through them before something else replaced it. Recognition, maybe, or resignation. "I am not going to hurt you," Nala said in English, though her Apache tongue wanted to form different words. She had learned the white man's language from the missionaries who had tried to save her soul when she was younger, before she returned to her people's ways. "Let me see the wound." The stranger tried to speak but coughed instead. She knelt beside him, ignoring the way his body tensed. The bullet had gone clean through his shoulder, which was fortunate. She had seen men die from less, but she had also seen men survive much worse. The bleeding needed to stop first. "My name is Yates Morrison," he managed to say, his voice rough. "3 men. They were chasing me." Nala glanced up at the canyon rim. The sun was setting, painting the New Mexico sky in shades of orange and purple. She could see no movement, hear no sounds of pursuit. Either the men thought they had killed him, or they would come looking once darkness fell. Neither option gave them much time. She worked quickly, tearing strips from her spare clothing to bind the wound. Yates watched her with those startling blue eyes, his jaw clenched against the pain. When she pulled the binding tight, he groaned but did not cry out. "Can you walk?" she asked. "I can try." "We cannot stay here. There are caves a mile north. I know them well." She helped him to his feet, and he swayed but steadied himself against the tree. He was tall, she noticed, maybe 6 feet, and lean in the way of men who worked hard and ate little. His gun belt was empty, the holster torn. Whoever had shot him had taken his weapon. They moved slowly through the gathering darkness, Yates leaning on her more than he probably wanted to admit. Nala was strong from years of desert living, from hauling water and gathering wood and tanning hides, but supporting a full-grown man tested even her strength. Still, they made progress, following a deer trail that wound between sage and juniper. The cave entrance was hidden behind a tumble of boulders. Nala had discovered it as a child, exploring these hills with her brother before the soldiers came and changed everything. Inside, the space opened into a small chamber, dry and protected from wind. She eased Yates down against the back wall and then went to gather wood for a fire. "You should leave me," Yates said when she returned with an armful of dead branches. "Those men, if they find you helping me, they will kill you too." "Then we must hope they do not find us," Nala replied. She arranged the wood carefully, using her flint to strike sparks into a nest of dry grass. The fire caught, and warm light filled the cave. In its glow, she could see Yates more clearly. His face was pale beneath the dust and sun-darkened skin, his breathing shallow. The wound was taking its toll. She reached into her pack and withdrew the dried venison. It was all she had until she could hunt again, meant to last her 3 more days on her journey. But this man would die without food, without strength to heal. "Here," she said, offering him a strip of the meat. "Eat." Yates stared at the food, then at her. "That is yours, and I am sharing it. Eat." He took the venison with a hand that trembled slightly. "Why are you helping me? Your people and mine are not exactly friends." Nala added more wood to the fire. "Some of my people, some of your people. But you are hurt and I am not, so I help. That is all. It is more than most would do." She did not answer. Instead, she retrieved her water skin and offered it to him. He drank deeply, then handed it back with a murmured thanks. Outside, night had fully fallen and the temperature was dropping. The desert gave up its heat quickly once the sun disappeared. "Tell me about these men who shot you," Nala said. "Why do they want you dead?" Yates chewed the venison slowly, as if gathering his thoughts along with his strength. "I worked for a rancher named Carson Hayes, east of here near Calico. Good man, fair employer. 2 months ago, 3 drifters came looking for work. Hayes hired them on because we were short-handed with the spring roundup coming, but they were not interested in honest work. They wanted to know about the ranch, about where Hayes kept his money, about when he rode into town." He paused, taking another drink of water. The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing across the cave walls. "I overheard them planning to rob Hayes, maybe kill him and his family. I tried to warn him, but they figured out I was onto them. They ambushed me on the road back from town, 3 against 1. I managed to ride away, but my horse stepped in a gopher hole a few miles back, broke its leg. I had to shoot it and then I ran." His voice cracked on the last word. "I loved that horse." Nala understood. A good horse was more than transportation in this country. It was a companion, a partner, sometimes the only friend a person had. You did what you had to do. Your horse would not want you to die for it. Maybe. Yates looked at her with something like curiosity. "You speak English well, better than some white folks I know." "The missionaries taught me. They wanted me to speak like them, dress like them, worship their God. I learned the language and some of their ways, but my heart remained Apache. Eventually I left and returned to my people." "Where are your people now?" The question struck old wounds. Nala poked at the fire with a stick, watching sparks spiral upward. "Scattered. Some on the reservation to the south, some in Mexico, some dead. My parents died when I was young. My brother was killed by soldiers 5 years ago. I have cousins on the reservation, but I cannot live there. It is like being in a cage." "So you live out here alone?" "Mostly. I trade sometimes in the towns, sell the baskets and leather goods I make. I know how to survive. The desert provides if you know where to look." Yates was quiet for a moment. "I am sorry about your family, and I am sorry about your horse." They shared a look then, a recognition of mutual loss and the strange circumstances that had brought them together. Nala divided the rest of the venison between them, keeping only a small portion for herself. Yates protested, but she insisted. "You need strength to heal. I can hunt tomorrow." "Will those men have given up by then?" "I do not know, but we cannot move you until you are stronger. We will keep watch tonight, and in the morning I will scout the area." She fed the fire and settled against the cave wall opposite Yates, her knife within easy reach. Outside, a coyote yipped in the distance, soon answered by others. The night songs of the desert, familiar and oddly comforting. "Thank you," Yates said quietly, "for the food, for helping me. I owe you my life." "You owe me nothing. Sleep now. You need rest." But neither of them slept much that night. Nala kept the fire going and listened for sounds of approaching danger. Yates dozed fitfully, his body fighting the wound and exhaustion. Twice she checked his bandages and found them holding. The bleeding stopped. He would live if infection did not set in. When dawn light began to filter into the cave, Nala slipped outside. The desert was waking, birds calling from the scrub, lizards emerging to catch the early sun. She climbed to a high point and studied the landscape. No smoke from campfires, no movement except wildlife. Either the 3 men had given up, or they were being very careful. She returned to the cave to find Yates awake, trying to sit up straighter. His color was better, she noticed, not quite so pale. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I was shot." But he smiled slightly. "Better than yesterday, though. That food helped. I am going to hunt." There are rabbits in these hills, maybe quail. Will you be all right alone? I will be fine. Just leave me that stick by the fire. It is not much of a weapon, but it is better than nothing. Nala found him a sturdier branch and then gathered her snares and throwing sticks. I will be back before midday. Keep the fire low so the smoke does not give us away. The morning hunt went well. She caught 2 rabbits in her snares and managed to bring down a quail with a well-thrown stick. By the time she returned to the cave, she had enough meat for several days if they were careful. Yates had kept the fire going as instructed, and he watched with obvious interest as she prepared the game. "You make it look easy," he observed. "Practice. My mother taught me to hunt when I was small. She said Apache women must be strong and skilled because life is hard and men cannot always provide." Nala skinned the rabbits with quick, efficient movements. She was right. My mother said something similar. She ran a boarding house in Texas after my father died. Worked from dawn to dark every day, never complained. She taught me that honest work is nothing to be ashamed of, no matter what kind it is. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. She died 3 years ago. Fever took her. Yates was quiet for a moment. I drifted after that. Worked ranches, did some freight hauling, whatever paid. Eventually ended up in New Mexico working for Hayes. It was the first place that felt like it might be home since I lost my mother. Nala set the rabbit meat to cook over the fire. "You can go back there once you heal. Warn your employer about those men. If Hayes is still alive, I have been gone 3 days now. Those men might have already made their move. Then you warn the law in Calico." "The law?" Yates laughed bitterly. "The sheriff in Calico is 60 years old and half blind. He is a good man, but he is no match for 3 armed killers. So what will you do?" "I do not know yet. First I need to heal enough to travel." He looked at her directly. "What about you? Where were you headed when you found me?" "North, to the trading post at San Miguel. I have baskets and leather goods to sell, and I need supplies for winter. Flour, salt, bullets for my rifle." "You have a rifle, hidden not far from here. I could not carry everything and drag you to the cave too." Yates shook his head wonderingly. "You are full of surprises." They ate the cooked rabbit meat, and Nala was pleased to see Yates manage a decent portion. His body was already beginning to heal, young and strong enough to fight off the trauma. She changed his bandages, using strips torn from the spare shirt in her pack, and noted that the wound looked clean. No signs of festering. Over the next 3 days, they fell into an easy routine. Nala hunted in the mornings while Yates rested and regained his strength. In the afternoons, she worked on a basket she had started before finding him, her hands moving in the patterns her mother had taught her. They talked, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes, their losses. Nala learned that Yates had been born in Texas, the youngest of 4 children. His father had been a blacksmith who drank too much and died in a bar fight when Yates was 10. His mother had moved the family to a larger town and opened her boarding house, working herself nearly to death to keep her children fed and clothed. Yates's older siblings had married and moved away, but he had stayed to help his mother until her death. "I always meant to make something of myself," Yates said on the 3rd evening, watching Nala weave dried grass into her basket. "Buy a piece of land, build a real home. My mother wanted that for all of us, but it is hard to save money when you are always just scraping by." "It is the same for my people," Nala replied. "The government promised us land and food if we went to the reservation, but the land is poor and the food never comes, or it is rotten when it does. They want us to become farmers, but they give us desert sand and expect corn to grow. That does not seem right. Many things are not right, but we survive anyway, because that is what people do." Yates watched her hands move, fascinated by the intricate patterns emerging from simple materials. "Could you teach me? I mean, not the basket making necessarily, but how to see the desert the way you do. All I see is empty land and danger. You see food and shelter and life. It takes time to learn, but yes, I could teach you some things." So on the fourth day, when Yates was strong enough to walk without help, Nala took him out into the desert. She showed him which plants held water in their roots, which cacti were safe to eat, how to read the signs of animal trails. She taught him to move quietly, to step on rocks instead of sand, to use the sun and stars for direction. Yates proved an attentive student, asking questions and trying to memorize everything she told him. They found a patch of prickly pear cactus, and Nala demonstrated how to harvest the fruit without getting covered in spines. They grilled the fruit over the fire that evening, and Yates declared it the best thing he had tasted in months. "You are just saying that because you nearly died a few days ago," Nala teased. "Everything tastes good when you were recently shot." "Maybe," Yates admitted with a grin, "but I think I would like it anyway." It was strange, Nala thought, how comfortable she had become with this white cowboy. She was used to solitude, to relying only on herself. Having another person in her space should have felt intrusive, but instead it felt natural, as if Yates somehow belonged there by the fire, his long legs stretched out and his face relaxed in the flickering light. She found herself noticing things about him. The way his hair curled slightly at his neck. The small scar on his chin that he said came from falling off a fence as a child. How his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which was happening more often as he healed. The careful way he spoke to her, always respectful, never presuming. On the fifth day, Yates insisted on helping with the hunting. His shoulder was still tender, but the wound had closed cleanly and he could move his arm without too much pain. Nala brought him to where she had hidden her rifle and he checked it over with practiced hands. "Good weapon," he said approvingly. "Winchester, not too old, you keep it well. It was my brother's, one of the few things I have left of him." Yates handed the rifle back carefully, understanding the weight of that statement. They hunted together that morning, and Yates managed to shoot a turkey that had been roosting in a juniper tree. It was the first fresh meat other than rabbit they had eaten, and they roasted it slowly over the fire, savoring every bite. "I suppose I should think about leaving soon," Yates said later that evening. "I have taken enough of your food and time. You had your own journey to make." Nala felt something twist in her chest at the thought of him leaving. "Your shoulder is not fully healed. Another few days would be better." "Another few days and you will have used up all your supplies taking care of me. You said you needed to reach that trading post before winter." "Winter is still months away. A few more days will not matter." But they both knew it was about more than practical concerns. Something had grown between them in this cave, something neither of them had words for yet. Nala had lived alone for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to share space with another person, to have someone to talk to at the end of the day, to not be the only human voice in the vast silence of the desert. And Yates, she suspected, had been lonely too, drifting from place to place with no real home or family. They were both outsiders in their own ways, both trying to survive in a world that had not been particularly kind to them. "What if I came with you?" Yates said suddenly. "To the trading post, I mean. I could help carry your goods, watch your back. These hills are not always safe for a woman traveling alone." "I've been traveling alone for years." "I know. I just thought." He paused, looking uncertain. "I thought maybe we could travel together for a while." "If you wanted the company." Nala considered this. It would be safer with two people, that was true, and if she was honest with herself, she did not want to say goodbye to Yates yet, perhaps not for a long while. "You would slow me down," she said, but she was smiling. "I am a fast healer." and I promise to carry more than my share." "All right, then. We leave tomorrow at dawn." They packed their few belongings that night, and Nala carefully scattered the ashes of their fire. In the morning, she led Yates along paths only she knew, routes that kept them off the main trails and away from places where they might encounter other travelers. They walked for hours, stopping only to rest and drink from the water skin. By afternoon, they reached a place where a spring bubbled up from between rocks, creating a small pool surrounded by cottonwood trees. It was one of Nala's favorite spots, a green oasis in the brown desert. They refilled their water supplies and rested in the shade. "This is beautiful," Yates said, looking around at the trees and the clear water. "Like a little piece of paradise. My brother and I used to come here as children. We would pretend we were the only people in the world, that we could live here forever and never have to deal with soldiers or reservations or any of it." Nala trailed her hand in the water. "Foolish dreams." "Not foolish. Everyone needs dreams." "What do you dream about, Yates Morrison?" He was quiet for a moment, watching the play of light on the water. "Lately, I dream about not being alone anymore, about having someone to build something with, a home, a life, something permanent. That is not a small dream. No, but maybe not impossible either." They looked at each other across the pool, and Nala felt her heart beat faster. She had not thought about these things in years, had convinced herself that her life was complete as it was. But now, looking at Yates with the sunlight catching in his hair, she wondered if perhaps she had been lying to herself. They continued their journey over the next several days, falling into an easy rhythm. Yates proved good company, quick to help set up camp and skilled at starting fires. His shoulder continued to heal, and soon he was moving without any stiffness at all. They hunted together, combining Nala's knowledge of the land with Yates's good aim, and they ate well. One evening, as they sat by their campfire under a blanket of stars, Yates asked Nala to teach him some Apache words. She started with simple things: water, fire, food, sky. He repeated them carefully, his accent rough but earnest. When he asked how to say thank you, she taught him, and he said it back to her with such sincerity that she had to look away. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing. I am just not used to this." "To what?" "To someone wanting to learn my language, my ways. Most white people think Apache ways are savage, not worth knowing." Yates moved closer, his expression serious. "I am not most white people, and you are the furthest thing from savage I have ever met. You are skilled, intelligent, and kind. You saved my life when you had no reason to. I would be honored to learn anything you want to teach me." Nala felt heat rise in her face that had nothing to do with the fire. "You say that now, but wait until I make you tan a deer hide. Then you will think I am torturing you," he laughed. "I will take my chances." They reached San Miguel trading post 9 days after leaving the cave. It was a rough collection of buildings clustered around a central plaza, serving miners, ranchers, and Indians from the surrounding territories. The proprietor was a weathered man named Tucker who had been running the post for 20 years and who knew Nala from her previous visits. "Good to see you, Nala," Tucker said, eyeing Yates with curiosity. "And you brought a friend this time." "This is Yates Morrison. He is traveling with me." Tucker nodded, asking no questions. That was one of the things Nala appreciated about him. He treated everyone the same and minded his own business unless asked. She spread out her goods on Tucker's counter. Baskets of varying sizes, beautifully woven, leather pouches and bags decorated with beadwork, a pair of moccasins she had made over the winter. Tucker examined each piece carefully, nodding his approval. "Fine work as always. I will give you a good price." They negotiated for a while, a familiar dance that both of them seemed to enjoy. In the end, Nala walked away with credit for flour, coffee, salt, sugar, bullets, and a few other supplies. Tucker threw in a new knife as a bonus, saying her old one looked about ready to fall apart. While Nala shopped, Yates wandered the trading post, looking at the various goods on display. He found her later, holding a length of blue cloth. "This would make a good dress," he said. "The color would suit you." Nala looked at the cloth, then at him. "I do not wear dresses, maybe not now, but you could if you wanted to, for special occasions." "What special occasions would I have?" Yates did not answer directly, just smiled and bought the cloth with some coins he had in his pocket. "Consider it payment for all the food you shared with me." They left the trading post with their supplies packed in a canvas bag Tucker had included. As they walked away from the settlement, Yates said, "I have been thinking." "About what?" "About what comes next, for both of us." Nala felt her stomach flutter. "And what have you decided?" "That I do not want to go back to drifting. I do not want to work for someone else's dream anymore. I want to build my own. That takes money, I know, but I have some saved, enough for a start, and I am good with horses. I could break and train them, sell them to ranchers. It is honest work and there is always demand." "Where would you do this?" Yates stopped walking and turned to face her. "That depends on you." Nala's heart was pounding now. "On me?" "Nala, these past 2 weeks with you have been the best I have had in years, maybe in my whole life. You are smart and capable and beautiful, and I feel like I can breathe properly for the first time when I am with you. I do not want to say goodbye. I want to stay with you if you will have me. I want to build a life together." She stared at him, hardly able to believe what she was hearing. "Yates, we barely know each other." "I know enough. I know that you are brave and generous. I know that you laugh at my terrible jokes and that you are patient when you teach me things. I know that I feel more at home sitting around a campfire with you than I ever did anywhere else." He reached out and took her hand carefully, as if afraid she might pull away. "I know this is sudden. And I know there will be people who do not approve, who will make things difficult. But I do not care about any of that if you do not." Nala looked down at their joined hands, his skin pale against her brown fingers. She thought about the life she had been living, always alone, always moving. It was a free life, but it was also lonely. And here was this man, this kind and honest cowboy, offering her something different, offering her a partnership, a future. "I do not know how to be with someone," she said quietly. "I have been alone for so long. Then we will learn together. Please, Nala, give us a chance." She looked up into his blue eyes and saw hope and fear and something deeper, something that made her chest ache in the best possible way. And she realized that somewhere between that first night in the cave and now, she had fallen in love with Yates Morrison. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will give us a chance." The smile that broke across Yates's face was like sunrise. He pulled her into a careful embrace, mindful of his still healing shoulder, and Nala wrapped her arms around him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the reality of this choice she was making. They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, before Yates pulled back enough to look at her face. "I want to do this right," he said. "I want to marry you properly if you will have me as a husband. Apache marriages are different from white marriages. Then teach me your ways. Or we can do both, whatever you want. I just want to wake up every morning knowing you are mine and I am yours." Nala felt tears prick her eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. "I want that too." They made camp that night in a small canyon, sheltered from the wind. After they ate, Yates pulled out the blue cloth he had bought and spread it across Nala's lap. "Tell me about Apache wedding traditions," he said. So Nala explained, as best she could remember from the weddings she had witnessed as a child. The exchange of gifts, the blessing from the families, the 4 days of ceremony. Much of it would be impossible for them, having no families to participate, but some things they could do. The most important part, Nala said, is the gift exchange. The man gives gifts to show he can provide. The woman gives gifts to show she can maintain a home. It is a promise to take care of each other. What kind of gifts? Traditionally, the man might give horses, weapons, food. The woman might give baskets, clothing, food she has prepared, but it is more about the symbol than the specific items. Yates thought for a moment. I do not have much to give right now, but I promise you horses once I can afford them. I promise you a home, even if it is just a small cabin at first. I promise you my strength and my loyalty and everything I can build with these two hands. Nala felt her throat tighten with emotion. And I promise you that you will never be hungry or cold if I can prevent it. I promise you the skills I have learned, the knowledge of the land. I promise you my trust, which I have not given to anyone in a very long time. They sealed their promises with a kiss, gentle at first and then deeper, and Nala felt as if she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Yates rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. I know it is fast, but I do. I love you, Nala. I love you too, she replied, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. They held each other as the fire burned down to embers and the stars wheeled overhead, two people who had been alone finding home in each other. The next morning, they began discussing practical matters. They needed land, somewhere they could build a home and keep horses. It needed to be away from major towns, where their mixed marriage would draw less attention and trouble. But it also needed to be close enough to civilization that Yates could do business selling trained horses. There is a valley I know, Nala said. About 3 days west of here. It has good water, grass for grazing, shelter from the worst weather. Some white ranchers use it for summer pasture, but no one lives there year-round. We might be able to claim some of it. Is it on reservation land? No. It is open territory, no clear ownership. That means it is risky, anyone could try to push us out. But it also means we have as much right to it as anyone else. Let us go look at it then. They traveled west, and Nala felt a growing excitement as they neared the valley. She had not been there in over a year, not since she had passed through on a winter journey. But she remembered it clearly. A long, narrow valley sheltered by red rock cliffs, with a year-round stream running through the center. Cottonwoods and willows grew along the water, and good grass covered the valley floor. When they crested the final ridge and looked down into the valley, Yates let out a low whistle. This is perfect. They descended into the valley and spent the afternoon exploring. The stream was running clear and cold, fed by springs higher in the hills. There were fish in the deeper pools, and they saw signs of deer and turkey. Near a bend in the stream, where a stand of cottonwoods provided shade, Nala pointed out a flat area that would be ideal for a cabin. We could build there, she said. Close to water but above the flood line. The trees would provide wood for building and for fires. And look, you can see anyone coming from either direction. Yates walked the area, his eyes taking in everything with the careful attention she had come to associate with him. We would need to cut and haul logs, build a corral for the horses. Put in a garden, maybe, if you wanted one. I have never had a garden. On the reservation they tried to make us farm, but nothing grew well. Here, though, with good water, we might have better luck. My mother had a garden behind the boarding house. I could try to remember what she did. They spent 3 days in the valley, camping by the stream and exploring every corner of the land. The more Nala saw, the more she could imagine a life here. A cabin with a good roof, a corral full of horses, a garden plot where they could grow vegetables. Maybe even chickens, though she had never kept chickens before. On the third evening, as they sat by their fire, Yates said, I want to do this. I want to claim this land and build our home here, but I will not do it if you have doubts. This has to be what you want too." Nala looked at the man beside her, this cowboy who had stumbled into her life bleeding and desperate, and who had somehow become her whole world in the space of a few weeks. She thought about the life she had been living, always moving, never settling, never allowing herself to want anything permanent because permanence seemed impossible for someone like her. But maybe it was not impossible. Maybe with Yates, she could have the home she had stopped letting herself dream about. "I want this," she said firmly. "I want to build a life here with you." Yates pulled her close and kissed her, and Nala felt the last of her reservations melt away. This was right. This was where she was meant to be. They returned to San Miguel to buy supplies and to file a claim on the land. The claim process was complicated by the fact that Nala was Apache and Yates was white, but Tucker helped them navigate the legal requirements. In the end, they filed the claim in Yates's name only, which bothered them both but seemed the safest option given the attitudes of the time. "Once we have the cabin built and established ourselves, we can worry about the paperwork," Tucker advised. "Right now, just focus on getting settled before winter comes." They bought tools, nails, a small stove, canvas for temporary shelter, seeds for planting, and various other necessities. Yates spent most of his savings, but he did not seem worried. "Money is for using," he said. "And I cannot think of a better use than building a home with you." They also bought a pair of horses from a rancher Tucker knew, sturdy animals trained for work. It meant more expense, but it also meant they could haul supplies and logs much more efficiently. Back in the valley, they pitched a canvas shelter near the spot where they planned to build the cabin. Then the real work began. Yates, despite his still healing shoulder, threw himself into cutting trees and trimming logs. Nala worked beside him, and together they fell into a partnership that felt as natural as breathing. The first few weeks were exhausting. They woke before dawn and worked until dark, breaking only for quick meals. Nala taught Yates how to move efficiently, how to read the land and use its features to their advantage. Yates taught Nala the finer points of construction he had learned from his blacksmith father, how to fit logs tightly and build walls that would stand strong. Slowly, the cabin began to take shape. 4 walls, a doorway, window openings. They chinked the gaps between logs with mud and moss. Yates built a stone fireplace, working carefully to ensure the chimney would draw properly. Nala wove willow branches into a lattice for the roof, which they would cover with sod. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, they sat outside their canvas shelter, watching the sun set behind the western cliffs. Yates had his arm around Nala and she leaned into him, bone-tired but content. "Are you happy?" Yates asked. "Yes, are you?" "Happier than I have ever been. Even with all the work, even with the uncertainty about whether we can really make this happen. I am happy because I am with you." Nala turned her head to look at him. His face was sunburned and his hands were rough with calluses, but his eyes were bright and full of joy. "I am happy too. I did not think I could be, but I am." They kissed as the last light faded from the sky, and then they went to sleep in their canvas shelter, wrapped in each other's arms. As summer turned toward fall, their cabin neared completion. They built a door from planks and hung it with hinges Yates fashioned from metal scraps. They covered the roof with layers of sod that would insulate them from both heat and cold. Nala made a broom from bundled grass and swept the dirt floor smooth. They moved into the cabin on a bright October morning, carrying their few possessions across the threshold. It was not much compared to the fine houses Nala had seen in towns, but it was sturdy and dry and it was theirs. That made it beautiful. "Welcome home," Yates said, and Nala felt tears spring to her eyes. Home, she repeated, testing the word. It felt foreign and wonderful at the same time. They spent the next weeks making the cabin more livable. Yates built a table and 2 chairs, working the wood with careful attention. Nala made a sleeping platform and stuffed a mattress with grass and soft plant fibers. She wove baskets for storage and made leather curtains for the windows. The garden plot Yates had prepared in the spring was overgrown now, but they cleared it and planted winter vegetables, hoping some might take before the first hard frost. They stocked the cabin with firewood, stacking it neatly along one wall. They hung dried meat from the ceiling beams and stored bags of flour and beans in a corner. One morning, Yates rode out early and returned at noon with 5 horses trailing behind him on lead ropes. "I bought them from a rancher passing through," he explained. "He needed cash and I got a good price. They are not trained yet, all young and half wild, but that is what I do best." Nala helped him get the horses settled in the corral they had built. She watched as Yates worked with the animals, his movements calm and confident. He had a gift with horses, she realized, a natural understanding of their behavior and needs. Over the following weeks, Yates spent hours each day with the horses, teaching them to accept a halter to be led to stand for grooming. It was slow, patient work, but Nala could see the progress. The horses grew calmer, more trusting. "Where did you learn this?" she asked one evening as they watched the horses graze in the corral. "From an old Mexican vaquero I worked with in Texas. He taught me that you do not break a horse's spirit, you earn its partnership. A horse that trusts you will work harder and last longer than a horse that fears you." "It is the same with people," Nala observed. "Yes," Yates agreed. "It is." As winter approached, they made final preparations. They gathered extra firewood, hunted and preserved as much meat as they could, and made sure the cabin was tight against drafts. They also discussed their marriage, which they had not yet formalized. "I want to marry you properly," Yates said, "but I do not know how that works for us. We cannot go to a church, they would not marry us, and we do not have Apache elders to perform a traditional ceremony." Nala had been thinking about this too. "What matters most is our commitment to each other. We have already exchanged promises. Perhaps we can create our own ceremony, something that honors both our backgrounds." So on the first day of snow that winter, they stood together beside the stream that ran through their valley. They had no witnesses except the horses and the birds and the vast New Mexico sky. But they spoke their vows to each other with complete sincerity. Yates promised to love and honor Nala, to work beside her and support her, to respect her ways and her people, to build a life worthy of her. Nala promised to love and honor Yates, to share her knowledge and her strength, to stand with him through whatever challenges came, to make a home that would shelter them both. They exchanged gifts as Apache tradition dictated. Yates gave Nala a beautiful bridle he had crafted for her during the long evenings, worked leather decorated with silver conchos he had traded for. Nala gave Yates a shirt she had sewn from deer hide, decorated with quillwork in traditional Apache patterns. Then they kissed, and the snow fell around them like a blessing, and they were married in the eyes of the land and sky and each other, which was all that mattered. That winter was hard but good. They were snowed in for weeks at a time, forced to rely on their stored supplies and each other. Nala taught Yates more of her language, and he became increasingly fluent. They told each other stories to pass the long evenings, and Yates carved small figures from wood while Nala worked on baskets. They made love often, learning each other's bodies with slow patience, and Nala discovered pleasures she had never imagined. Yates was tender and attentive, always making sure she felt safe and cared for. And in the warmth of their bed, with the wind howling outside and the fire crackling in the hearth, Nala felt more content than she had ever thought possible. By the time spring arrived, they had become a true unit, their movements synchronized, their thoughts often aligned. When the snow melted and the valley began to green, they emerged from the cabin ready to expand their enterprise. Yates sold 3 of the horses he had trained to a rancher from Calico, making enough profit to buy 6 more unbroken animals. Word began to spread about the cowboy in the valley who could gentle horses without cruelty, and customers started seeking him out. Nala continued to hunt and gather, providing meat and wild plants for their table. She also began making more trade goods, knowing they would need additional income. Her baskets and leatherwork were always in demand. One day in late spring, a marshal rode into their valley. Nala saw him coming and felt her stomach drop with fear. Had someone reported them? Were they being ordered to leave? But the marshal turned out to be looking for something else entirely. "I am searching for 3 men," he explained, accepting the coffee Yates offered. "They robbed and murdered a rancher named Carson Hayes about 6 months back. We tracked them south from Calico, but lost the trail around these parts." Yates and Nala exchanged glances. "Carson Hayes was my employer," Yates said carefully. "I tried to warn him about those men, but they came after me, shot me, and left me for dead." The marshal's eyes sharpened. "You are the missing ranch hand. Hayes's widow was worried about you. She thought you might have been killed too." "I nearly was. My wife saved my life." Yates reached over and took Nala's hand. "Have you found those men? Caught 2 of them trying to cross into Mexico. The 3rd one is still out there somewhere, but we will get him. I came to tell you that you can stop looking over your shoulder." "Hayes is avenged." After the marshal left, Yates held Nala close. "It is really over," he said. "We are safe." "We were always safe," Nala replied. "We had each other." That summer they prospered. Yates's reputation as a horse trainer grew, and he had a steady stream of customers. Nala sold her goods at the trading post and brought back supplies. They built a larger corral and a small barn for hay storage. In August, Nala realized she was pregnant. She told Yates one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. She need not have worried. He let out a whoop of joy and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to stop before she got dizzy. "We are having a baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to be parents." "Are you ready for that?" Nala asked. "I do not know if anyone is ever ready. But I know I want this, want a family with you. We will figure it out together." Nala felt a rush of love so intense it almost hurt. "Together," she agreed. They spent the rest of her pregnancy preparing. Yates built a cradle from smooth pine, working the wood until it was soft as silk. Nala sewed tiny clothes and made soft blankets. They talked about names, about how they would raise a child who belonged to both their worlds. "Our child will face challenges," Nala said one evening, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "People will judge, will say cruel things about having a white father and an Apache mother. Then we will teach our child to be strong," Yates replied, "to be proud of both heritages, to stand tall no matter what anyone says." Their son was born on a cold March morning, arriving fast and healthy. Yates delivered him with Nala's guidance, his hands shaking but steady enough. When he placed the baby on Nala's chest, both of them were crying. "He is perfect," Yates said. "You are perfect. I love you both so much." They named him Thomas, after Yates's father, with an Apache middle name that meant new beginning. He had his mother's dark hair and his father's blue eyes, and he was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. The years that followed were full and rich. 2 more children came, a daughter named Sarah and another son named James. The horse business thrived, and they built a proper house to replace the cabin, with 3 bedrooms and a porch that faced the sunset. Nala taught all her children the Apache ways, the language and stories and skills she had learned from her own mother. Yates taught them to ride and rope, and the value of honest work. Together, they raised children who were comfortable in both worlds, who knew how to tan a hide and also how to read and write English. There were difficult times. Some people in the surrounding towns refused to do business with them once they learned about Nala. Others made hateful comments or tried to cheat them. But there were also good people like Tucker, who judged them only by their character and became a beloved honorary uncle to their children. As Nala aged, her hair going silver and her face gaining lines, she sometimes thought back to that day when she had found a wounded cowboy under a cottonwood tree. She had shared her food with a stranger, a simple act of kindness that had changed her entire life. Yates had repaid that generosity not just by staying, but by giving her the one thing she had never expected to have, a home. Not just a physical place, though their valley would always be precious to her, but a home in the sense of belonging, of being loved and accepted completely, of having a partner to face life with. On their 20th wedding anniversary, they stood together in the same spot where they had spoken their vows all those years ago. Their children played nearby and horses grazed in the corral, and the cabin they had built with their own hands still stood solid against the elements. "You ever regret it?" Yates asked, his arm around her waist, "tying your life to mine?" Nala looked up at the man who had become her husband, her partner, the father of her children. His hair was graying now and his face was weathered, but his blue eyes were still as clear as the day she had first seen them. "Never," she said firmly, "not for a single moment." "I love you," Yates said, "just as much as I did that first day, maybe more. I love you too. Thank you for staying, for building this life with me. Thank you for saving me in every possible way." They kissed, and their children made exaggerated gagging sounds, and they laughed. Life was good. Life was full. And it had all started with one small act of kindness in a desert canyon, one decision to help a stranger in need. Years continued to pass, bringing both joys and sorrows. They buried Tucker when he passed peacefully in his sleep at the age of 86. They celebrated when Thomas announced he was marrying a kind woman from Calico, who did not care about his mixed heritage. They worried through a drought that lasted 3 years, but managed to survive by helping their neighbors and accepting help in return. Their reputation in the region slowly shifted from that of outcasts to that of respected members of the community. It helped that Yates was known as an honest businessman who kept his word, and that Nala's medical knowledge, learned from Apache healers and her own experience, saved several lives over the years. When people needed help, they provided it without asking for anything in return, and eventually even the most prejudiced neighbors came to grudgingly respect them. Sarah grew into a beautiful young woman who had her mother's skill with crafts and her father's way with animals. She married a schoolteacher who loved her fierce independence, and eventually opened her own shop in San Miguel, selling the baskets and leather goods she made using techniques her mother had taught her. James, the youngest, turned out to have a gift for words. He learned to read voraciously, borrowing every book he could find, and eventually became a newspaper editor, writing stories about the changing West and the people who lived in it. He made sure to record his parents' story, wanting the world to know about the Apache woman and the cowboy who had built a life together against all odds. When Nala turned 50, her children and grandchildren threw her a celebration. 20 people gathered in the valley that had become home to so many happy memories. They roasted meat over an open fire and shared stories late into the night. Nala sat surrounded by her family, Yates beside her holding her hand, and felt overwhelmed by the richness of her life. "I wish my mother could see this," she told Yates later that night after everyone had gone to sleep and they sat alone under the stars. "She would be so proud." "I wish she could see it too," Yates agreed. "And my mother, they would have liked each other, I think. They would have loved the grandchildren. They would have loved you." Nala leaned her head on Yates's shoulder, feeling the familiar, solid warmth of him. They had been together for over 30 years now, and she still found comfort in his presence, still felt a flutter in her chest when he smiled at her in that particular way. "We did well, did we not?" she said. "In spite of everything, we built something good." "We built something wonderful," Yates corrected. "And it all started because you were kind to a stranger who had nothing to offer you but trouble. You offered me more than you knew. You offered me a future. We offered each other a future." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead, the same stars that had watched them fall in love all those years ago. The desert night was cool and clear, full of the small sounds of the land they had made their own. The horses moving in the corral, an owl calling from the cottonwoods, the distant song of coyotes. As they aged into their 60s and then 70s, Yates and Nala gradually handed more of the work to their children and grandchildren. Thomas took over the horse training business, proving to have inherited his father's gift. Sarah's shop became successful enough that she opened a second location. James's newspaper articles about the West were being read across the country. But even in their later years, Nala and Yates remained active. Nala still gathered herbs and made medicines, and women from surrounding ranches often came to her for help with pregnancies and illnesses. Yates still worked with the horses, though he focused on the young ones now, teaching his grandchildren the patient methods he had learned so long ago. One spring evening, when Nala was 74 and Yates 76, they took a walk along the stream that ran through their valley. The cottonwoods were leafing out, their green a bright contrast against the red canyon walls. The water rang clear and cold, just as it had when they first arrived all those decades ago. "You remember the first time we came here?" Yates asked. "When it was just an empty valley with potential." "I remember everything," Nala said. "I remember thinking that it would be a good place for a home, but not quite believing it could happen. And now look at it. Our house, the corrals, the garden, 3 generations of family. It is more than I ever dreamed." They stopped at the spot where they had been married, where the stream bent around a stand of cottonwoods. Someone, probably one of the grandchildren, had placed stones there in a circle, making the spot into a quiet memorial. "I have been thinking," Yates said slowly, "about everything we have built, everything we have shared. And I realized that the best decision I ever made was accepting your help that day. The second best decision was asking you to let me stay." "The best decision I ever made was saying yes," Nala replied. She turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. "You gave me everything I did not know I wanted. A home, a family, a partnership that has sustained me through everything. You gave me love, Yates, the kind that lasts forever." Yates pulled her close and they stood there by the stream, 2 old people who had loved each other through decades of joys and challenges, who had built something lasting and true. "Forever," Yates repeated. "That was always the promise, was it not? You shared your food with a stranger, and I repaid your generosity with forever." "You did," Nala agreed. "You really did." They walked back to the house as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Their grandchildren were playing in the yard, and the smell of dinner cooking drifted from the kitchen where Sarah was helping Thomas's wife prepare the meal. The horses whinnied a greeting from the corral, and somewhere a baby was crying, the newest addition to their growing family. Yates and Nala sat on the porch they had built together so many years ago, watching the activity around them. They held hands, their fingers intertwined in the familiar way of long married couples, and felt the deep contentment of a life well lived. Years later, when they were both gone, their story lived on through their children and grandchildren, and the many people whose lives they had touched. The valley where they had built their home remained in the family, passed down through generations, a testament to what two people could create when they chose love over fear, partnership over isolation. People still told the story of the Apache woman who had shared her food with a wounded stranger, and the cowboy who had repaid her generosity with forever. It became a legend in those parts, a reminder that kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond the original act, that love can bridge any divide, and that home is not a place but the people we choose to build our lives with. The house still stood, weathered but solid, sheltering new generations. The stream still rang clear through the valley, and somewhere in the wind that whistled through the cottonwoods, you could almost hear the echo of two voices, speaking vows of love and commitment that had lasted beyond a lifetime, into something eternal.